Once again, good evening. My name is Casey Russell. I'm the president of the Adams State University Alumni Association. I welcome you to our homecoming awards banquet. Welcome home. Before we call the meeting to order, please join us in singing the Alma Mater. The Alma Mater will be performed by Janine Holcomb and accompanied by Marcus LeBlanc. You'll find the words to the Alma Mater in your programs. Please stand. Thank you, Janine and Marcos. Appreciate that. In conjunction to the banquet, our bylaws require us to have an annual meeting for the Alumni Association. Our bylaws require that we establish a quorum. Could I please have all Adams State alumni stand? Don't rest. Madam Secretary Holly Felmy, do we have a quorum? Okay. Very good. A quorum has been established. I would also like to share the mission statement of the Alumni Association. The mission of the Adams State University Alumni Association Board of Directors is to reach out to the current alumni, future alumni, and the community in order to cultivate loyalty, pride, and commitment to Adams State University. If there is no other business, we will continue on with our banquet. I have a few introductions to make at the head of the table this evening. We have Adams State University President Dr. David Sabaldi and his wife Virginia. Thank you, Dr. Sabaldi, for all your support and work for the Alumni Association. Also, award winner Dr. Julian, Dr. John Tucker, I'm sorry, and his wife Amy. I would also like to point out a few others in the room. Lori Lasky, the Executive Director of Alumni and Member Relations. Also, award winner Dr. Julian Maendel and his wife Amy. Also, if Gayleen Horning would raise her hand, she is the Assistant Director of the Alumni. Gayleen spends a lot of time preparing for homecoming and helps me to read my paper here a lot better too, so that helps a bunch. Appreciate that. Also, Tammy Lopez. She could raise her. Tammy is the Executive Director of the Foundation. She is now the new assistant of the Gossamer Hanging. So she helped out a bunch with the decorations. Linda Rallier, the Assistant Director of Communications, and she also works on the A-Stater. Mark Schonecker in the back. He's funding the event. And also our work study students, Katie Francis, Brandy Shawcroft, and Caitlin Behringer. ASU Board of Trustees members, if you could please stand, and then I'll announce your names. Okay. Okay. Those that are present are Randy Wright, Rob Benson, Haley Gomez, and Val Vigil. Thank you. ASU Foundation Board members present, please stand. We have Dwayne Bussey, Russell Hawkins, and Dr. John McCammon. And Dale Hettinger. I'm sorry. I'll write your name down so I won't forget next time. Alumni Association Board of Directors, members please stand. All right. We have Delzy Worley, Tony Cantu, Holly Family. I would also like to recognize the past Alumni Award winners. If you are an Alumni Service Award, Outstanding Alumni, Exceptional New Alumni, or Billy Adams Award winner, please stand. They are Denise Trujillo, Dale Hettinger, Dwayne Bussey, Dr. John McDaniel, Dr. Kay Watkins, Darlene Brace, Glenn Bunch, Charlotte Bobisky, Harry Hull, and Don Stegman. I believe that concludes our introductions for now. You may go ahead and start eating, and please enjoy your meal. You can already eat a long time ago. Go ahead and enjoy. Everyone, we'll go ahead and continue with our program. Please continue to eat as we continue. But we will go ahead and start our work presentations to get done for the next events that are still to come this evening. We'd like to thank Sodexo for the wonderful meal that they prepared. Now we will do a special recognition of the reunion groups. If you could just please hold your applause till after we announce everyone, and then we'll applause at the end. If they could please stand in this order: class of 1954, class of 1959, class of 1964, class of 1969, class of 1974, class of 1979, class of 1984, class of 1989, class of 1994, class of 1999, 2004, 2009, I believe that's it. Now I would like to introduce the president of Adams State University, Dr. David Spalding.
Thank you, Casey. Well, welcome everyone. As Casey said, welcome home. It's good to see some good old friends, and it's good to see some people I've never seen before. So, I look around the room. Pretty awesome, isn't it? The decorations, very welcoming, and the people who did that are the people that virtually did everything for this event. That's Lori Lasky, Tammy Lopez, Gayling Horning. We're over here, I think all day yesterday, and you need to know they had to go out to the storage unit to get all this stuff and bring it here. And this evening, while we're all relaxing or dozing, whatever we're going to do after this big meal, they'll be here packing it all up, getting it ready to take it back to storage. So let's give them an extra special hand for all that work. Especially like to welcome Dr. Tucker and Dr. Maendel. We're very, very glad that you're here with us, and you and your family and your friends. Yeah, the other thing I would mention, and I actually had a meeting with the San Luis Valley Health, I think that was Tuesday, and we do have a shortage of physicians in the San Luis Valley, and you would be very welcome to come back and practice and be with us. So as an individual who got that little special cardboard ID card from the federal government that says I qualify for a certain medical program, I would be very happy to have additional doctors back in the valley. So, but seriously, congratulations, and I'm very glad you're with us. Just a few quick updates about our campus for those of you who haven't been back for a while. Our enrollment remains strong. As of this morning, we had 2,964 degree-seeking students. We lost a few returning upper division students, but we have a record number, I think the record in the history of Adams State, of graduate students enrolled, 966 in our 9 graduate programs, including our new PhD in counselor education, which I mentioned last year, which has been approved, and we have 13 students enrolled in that program. We have lots of building projects around. I know presidents always like to talk about buildings, I guess. And I hope that you'll have the opportunity to look at them, the remodels. It's really narrowed down to one project that's in process and one new one that will start, probably our planning will start here in the next couple of months. You may have noticed that big white bubble called Moby Bubble by some students on one end of campus where we have a 200-meter track. We hosted our first indoor track RMAC championship last year, much to the chagrin of the other schools in the RMAC, because of course we swept everything. They didn't want to come here to compete, and I guess at the altitude that you compete at here, I guess I can understand that. We have the new campus green, which you can see just right behind me. New athletic fields, baseball, softball, soccer, and lacrosse fields. Most interesting things about those aren't grass. Those are pro turf. There's no mowing, there's no clipping, there's no weeding, there's no watering. And they will last, I'm told, 8 years and pay for themselves in 8 years. The music building, which some of you spent some time in, has been completely remodeled. McDaniel Hall, which some of you remember as the Education and Social Sciences building, has been completely remodeled and named for our own Dr. John McDaniel. John, where are you? Plocky Hall, named after President Plocky, has been remodeled and upgraded, and that's a project. The pool will be redone, be retiled. It'll be an attractive use facility for those folks who like to use that. Rex Stadium, of course, we have residences at Rex, and I want to debunk the rumors that says that only football players get to live in the apartments in the residences at Rex. That is actually an honors dorm. meaning that you have to have high grades and lots of credit hours completed to have a chance of getting in there. You have to find your friends that have high grade point averages too to join you. And of course we have a waiting list because those are very nice apartments. Reminds me a little bit of a Holiday Inn Select. Some of you may remember the old Evans School, or maybe you might even remember it as a junior high. We purchased that building 2 years ago. It's been partially remodeled, and I'm happy to say that we just learned really about 30 days ago that we received $5.8 million from the state to remodel and upgrade that building, bring it up to ADA code, bring the HVAC up, and make the classrooms smart classrooms for our smart students. And we're excited about that project. And the other project that's in process is, of course, Richardson Hall, named for our first president, Dr. Ira Richardson. It's a $22 million project. It's well on its way to completion. James, my assistant, and I will get to move back into our remodeled office, which reminds me of the offices in LA Law, if any of you remember that old television show. The end of this month. That building, it was interesting when they started the demolition piece. Guess how much insulation they found in it? 0. Apparently back in 1921, energy was much cheaper than insulation. When it's completed, it will be LEED certified, meaning it will be extremely efficient in terms of, and extremely green, which is only appropriate for Adams State University to have a green building. Please watch your mailboxes. We will have a grand opening of the building when it's fully completed, probably around May graduation. The south end of the building will be the first one that's completed. We expect that to be done within the next month to 6 weeks, and we'll move back into that. And then the north end of the building will be completed, and there's some other things that have to be done, landscaping and heavens, the parking lot. Can't have too few parking lots, there are too many parking lots. So we're very happy about that. And I know someplace, probably Dr. Richardson is going to be smiling when he sees what that building looks like when it's completed. And the auditorium in that building is also going to be completely redone. It's the largest venue of its kind in the San Luis Valley. It will be ADA accessible. It will be, I just wish that Beverly Mosetti hadn't retired, because it would have been nice for her students to be able to dance on that stage when they didn't get splinters from the floor and when we didn't have to hide the torn curtains. So it's going to be a great facility. Acoustically perfect. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be used both by our great music department and by our theater department. We look forward to that. Some of you may also have noticed that I've announced my intention to retire at the end of this year. For some of you, it said probably already. Didn't that guy just get appointed president? But believe it or not, it's been 10 years. That's a decade. And prior to that, I was 9 years as provost and academic vice president. And prior to that, nearly 10 years as a faculty member. I always say when I moved from the faculty to administration that I improved the average intelligence of both groups. I'm kidding. It does give me a lump in my throat to think about this, and it really does remind me nearly 50 years ago when I set out to travel from Grand Junction to Fort Collins after completing my 2-year degree at Mesa College, back when it was a good college, when it was a 2-year college. And I was standing on the steps with my mother, of course, having looked forward all summer to finally getting away and being on my own. Boy, I was going to have a great time. And literally, we stood on the front steps for 2 hours saying goodbye. And I remember, because we were both crying, her saying, well, David, don't worry. You can always come home. And so next year, I look forward to coming home and being out there with you. So welcome back. Glad you're here. Enjoy your time here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Spali. Appreciate that. Now, I would like to introduce the Executive Director of the Alumni Relations, Lori Lasky.
I'm a lot shorter than Casey, so I hope everybody can hear me. Tonight we have a very special surprise award that we would like to honor, and it is the Alumni Service Award. This award is determined by the staff of the Alumni Relations Office, and it goes to a person that has gone above and beyond in volunteering to help our office. This person cannot be serving on a board, nor is the service part of their employment. This award has only been awarded 2 times in the last 11 years. Once in 2007 to Mark Manzanares, and once in 2009 to Glenn Bunch, who is right over here. Tonight's special recipient has attended homecoming for many years, almost every homecoming since I started in this position. And for the last few years, he has purchased candy for the parade. In fact, to share a story, in 2012, Tammy and I were out there decorating the float in the cold morning, had everything lined up for a parade, and this car comes rushing in to the parade line. This person jumps out, opens up the trunk, and it is full of candy. Then him and his son grab buckets, start filling them up with candy, and start running down the street chanting, ASU, ASU. And it was the first time we got to say you in there. The next story that I wanted to share is another time I vaguely recall him bringing a friend from the local area where he's at, and this gentleman beat like this drum, a bass drum, the whole time down the parade route. It gave all of us a headache, but it was a great demonstration of the spirit of the alumni. And finally, this year, when I realized that I was short on staff for our banquet and we needed some help, I called Norm and said, I could really use your help. Remember at lunch when you said, if I ever needed anything, to give me a call? Well, I need some help. My board members, a lot of them are out of town and unable to help. And so sure enough, he arranged his work schedule. He worked with his wife, Tracy. He got in the car. He drove over Wolf Creek Pass, and here he is today. So for all of the things, the many trips over to our events, our cross-country, track and field reunions, all of the events that he comes to in the Durango area, it is with great honor that I, Gayleen, and Tammy award our friend Norman Tucker the 2014 Alumni Service Award.
When you serve, you get a lot more back than you give.
Well said, and congratulations, Norman. Now I would like to ask and introduce, and before I ask him to come up, Dr. John McDaniel. Just wanted to make a quick announcement that today is Dr. McDaniel's birthday, and I'd like to congratulate him for another birthday. So. But I would like to ask Dr. McDaniel to please come up and share with us a little bit about our 2014 exceptional new alumnus, Dr. Julian Maendel, class of 2007. Dr. McDaniel.
I'm not sure whether these mics are properly positioned. Can you hear all right? Okay. In the college classroom, a student most often comes to the attention of the instructor by asking inane questions or else making some outrageous comment. A second way is to sit inconspicuous inconspicuously in the back of the room for much of the hour, but then later excelling on papers and exams. To illustrate, I recall one young scholar at the beginning of this new millennium who blurted out regarding one of our presidents, "You mean that cocaine monkey?" All you can do is say, "Is that how you really feel?" or "Tell me how you really feel." Dr. Maendel quite obviously belongs to the second category. He rarely, if ever, spoke up in the classroom and only answered questions if called upon. Clearly, he was an example of still water running deep. Perhaps the idea is no longer in fashion, but since my own introduction to college in 1950, I have been committed to the concept that the purpose of higher education is to prepare one to live a richer life as well as to earn a living. I suggest that Julian's experience affords an example of that commitment. As an undergraduate, he opted for a liberal arts major in quest of the fuller life, while at the same time pursuing a pre-med minor to better earn a livelihood. Especially in the area of technology, we have experienced revolutionary change since I was a boy coming of age in the 1940s. Then we had no stereo, tape recorders, internet, TV remote controls, or cell phones. Two favorite cartoons accurately capture these simpler times. A small boy asks of his grandfather, somewhat incredulously, "You mean you had to walk across the room to change the channel?" And another, "You mean the phone was always connected to a cord?" In the almost 5 decades of my association with Adams State, one has seen numerous advances in higher education. One of the most significant and far-reaching recent developments is that a student can now obtain an ASU degree without ever setting foot on campus, or for that matter, ever having been in Colorado. So far as I know, these internet graduates are not identified with an asterisk or some other insignia indicating the sterility of an education devoid of meaningful interaction with instructors or the lively give and take with fellow students. Unlike these latter-day scholars, Dr. Maendel received his BA after an undergraduate career spent on campus, and so did his wife, the lovely Amy Van Dyke. Congratulations to them and to all of you who hold the traditional Adams State degree. In 1959, John F. Kennedy was beginning his second term in the United States Senate, and still reveling in the popular esteem stemming from the success of his recently published Profiles in Courage. When the Senate leadership sought to honor the 5 greatest senators in the history of that body, they appointed Senator Kennedy to chair the committee charged with selecting the nominees. Among the 5 immortals, they ultimately chose Daniel Webster, an accomplished orator in an era of great orators. History also remembers him for effectively arguing before the Supreme Court on behalf of his alma mater in the Dartmouth College case. At the time, he concluded his remarks with a heartfelt appeal to the justices. "It is, sir, a small college, but there are those of us who love it." Given our experience with our own small college, I am sure we can all identify with that elegant sentiment. Although in the 7 years since his graduation, we have transitioned from college to university, I have no doubt that Julian still takes great pride in the BA he received from Adams State College. And so this evening, it gives me great pleasure to present to you the individual we recognize and honor as this year's outstanding new alumnus, Dr. Julian Maendel.
this plaque. We're proud to present this plaque to Dr. Julian Maendel for being the 2014 Exceptional New Alumnus. I want to say to him congratulations and continued success.
So first of all, thank you, Dr. McDaniel, for that very generous introduction. It's also a great honor to be up here with Dr. Tucker, who's an example for us younger physicians, and will continue to be down the road, I'm sure. I wanted to take this opportunity to say a few words of my own. First of all, it's a great honor and very humbling to be able to be here, to accept this award and to have been chosen for this award in the first place. During my 3 years here at Adams, I made many good friends, and certainly a number of my classmates would have been excellent candidates as well. So I feel very fortunate. Coming here also gave me a good excuse to get away from the daily grind of a surgical residency. At least for a few days, and come back to the Valley, visit with some old friends, and make some new acquaintances as well. So for that, I'm very, very grateful. My wife Amy and I currently live on the North Carolina East Coast, and while the beach certainly has its appeal, we do miss the mountains, powder days at Wolf Creek in particular. One thing that my experiences since my time at Adams have taught me is how lucky I was to have ended up here for my undergraduate training. As some of you know, I initially came here to Colorado from New York as an AmeriCorps volunteer in the spring of 2002, and then spent the next 2 years working as an AmeriCorps volunteer with the La Puente homeless shelter here in town. It was during my time there that I first seriously considered the medical field, and I especially valued the vibrant volunteer community of which I was a part, filled with new ideas, infectious enthusiasm for the future. But youthful idealism aside, my time there also allowed me to cobble together at least a rough outline of my personal goals for the future. One of those was going to college. As the youngest of 10 children, yes, same two parents, they were not Catholic nor Mormon. While I never lacked for hand-me-downs, my folks simply didn't have the means to help me financially when it came to college. This was empowering to some degree, as I knew the responsibility for figuring out how to fund my education lay with me alone. However, when I did my initial college searches, I remember being fairly disheartened by the average cost of tuition in this country. Ultimately, I ended up needing to look no further than down the street to find ASU with affordable tuition. I applied, was accepted, and started college here in the fall of 2004. It was only after starting classes that I began to realize what a hidden gem Adams State really is. During my 3 years here, I was able to travel to Venezuela and California with the Model UN Club, special thanks to Dr. Centeno there, as well as go on various spring break service trips with Shirley Atencio and the Newman Club. These included one particular week-long venture to Mexico in the spring of 2005 at the relatively measly cost of $75 to work on an elementary school along the Pacific coast there. Unfortunately, we ran out of supplies the second day and were forced to spend the remainder of the trip eating mangoes on the beach. The same trip, I was also pretty happy to get to meet the woman who's now my wonderful wife, and that is something yet else for which I remain indebted to ASU. But extracurricular activities aside, it was the close-knit academic community of Adams State which enabled me to reach my full potential as a student. My science professors, Dr. Jones, Dr. Miller, Dr. Brink, Dr. Armstrong, Dr. Estalis, went out of their way to maximize my personal chances for academic success and eventual medical school acceptance. I doubt very much that at a larger university I would have had the similar unfettered access to academic help outside the classroom. I dropped by the offices of some of my professors almost daily. Dr. Jones and Dr. Miller can attest to this in particular, for extra help, and yes, I needed it. It never ceased to amaze me how quickly they were to put aside whatever they were working on to help me better understand van der Waals forces or what exactly it is about capsaicin that makes Mexican food irresistible. Despite my goal of medical school, my major was history, an interest of mine since young, and I was privileged to have professors like Dr. McDaniel, Dr. Hillwig, and Dr. Crowther who helped me both improve my writing ability and gain a more nuanced understanding of both our country and the greater world around us. I became a far more well-rounded person as a result. ASU's low student-professor ratio and the chance to complement classroom instruction by one-on-one discussion in a more informal setting was one of the things I value most about Adams, and is a big reason why I did well here. Dr. Jones used to remind us with a somewhat mischievous smile that before a particularly challenging organic chemistry test, that was, quote, not a test, it's a chance to excel. I've come to apply the same concept to those difficult situations in life that we're all destined to encounter at one point or another. We may fail, we may be disappointed, but there's always the opportunity to get back up and try again. To me, ASU is the embodiment of that idea. Ultimately, I'm grateful to the institution for giving a young man with limited financial means but ambitious goals the educational foundation to pursue a fulfilling occupation. For those of us who have had the privilege of an ASU education, it now remains incumbent upon us to be role models in bettering the lives of those around us, just as the faculty, staff, and ASU community as a whole once were for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDaniel. Thank you, Dr. Maendel, for those words and that acceptance speech. Appreciate that. Our next award is for the outstanding alumnus. This year we want to recognize Dr. John Tooker, class of 1966. Fred Bunch, if you could please come forward and present this award.
Hello. That comes in handy on those powder days of Wolf Creek. I appreciate very much being an Adams State alumni myself, although I only went for three terms there. Nixon, Ford, Carter. This is a huge honor for me to introduce Dr. John Tooker as the outstanding alumnus. This guy's incredible. He really is. My first contact came with Dr. Cooper when I was a little pipsqueak, living over here on Edgemont Boulevard. And it is a boulevard. And like everybody, all my friends said, well, how do you rate living on a boulevard? And well, I don't know, that's what it is. We didn't have to spell it. And when I was growing up, I had three childhood idols. Mickey Mantle, the famous New York Yankee slugger, John Glenn, the astronaut, and John Tooker. John Tooker was the outstanding defensive back at Adams State. And John Tooker was only one of these three idols that I knew personally. And it seemed like any challenge that John took on, he did it, and he did it with grace and made it look easy. And I know it probably wasn't, but he had a lot of class. And he was always friendly, even to the pipsqueaks. In my mind, John Tooker was probably, like the Dos Equis commercial, the most interesting man in the world. I mean, I was sure that this guy could parallel park trains, or he could make a weeping willow laugh, or he could bowl overhand, and even Bigfoot tries to get pictures of him. When he was at Adams State, I knew that there was an academic side to him. But what really impressed me was his skill on the football field. Whenever the opposing team, heaven forbid, scored a touchdown, never fear, John Tooker was there to block the extra point. Somehow they had the play lined up where when they snapped the ball, number 86 would run through the line and throw his huge body in front of the kicker, and many times the ball would hit his chest and bounce off like thunder, like a thunderclap. And several times I remember that made the difference in the game, was that John was able to block the opposing team's extra point. The Tucker family and the Bunch family were friends and neighbors, and our mothers played bridge together, and I remember riding tricycles with Debbie, John's sister, and then we graduated to bicycles. That's the normal evolution from pipsqueaks. And I remember our father, Dr. Bunch, having conversations with John when John was trying to figure out his path in life. And I knew that Dad, Dr. Bunch, felt that John would excel in the healing arts. And I know that when John had the choice, and imagine having this choice. You've been drafted by the Miami Dolphins, or you've been accepted to medical school. Dad was very pleased when John chose medical school. And that's huge, because he was a huge football fan and would have loved to see John play football, but he made the choice that he needed to make. And as John's medical career blossomed, he went to CU, and then he did an internship at Bellevue in New York City, residency. And he'd come home time to time to visit and stop by the house and talk to the folks. And we'd all gather around, you know, because he's this most interesting man in the world. And I remember John telling this incredible story when he was working at Bellevue. And, you know, Bellevue is the size of Alamosa. It's this huge hospital. And it's legendary. There's folk songs sung about this hospital. And John was telling me about when he was working in the emergency room and walking through the waiting room. And sitting in the waiting room was this guy, nonchalantly, reading a magazine with a spear stuck out of his head. trying not to draw any attention. And I'm sure that's an incredible story. I don't know if you got that or not. But what an education. And John went on, served in the Navy, continued his outstanding, to be outstanding in the field of medicine in private practice, in education, as a teacher, and as the Vice President and CEO of the American College of Physicians. His many awards include the American Medical Association Executive Lifetime Achievement Award, and many, many more, including this one. So please join me in welcoming Adams State's gift to medicine, Dr. John Tucker.
Dr. Tucker, it is our pleasure also to present you with the 2014 Outstanding Alumnus. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Well, it is tough to follow Fred. Thank you very much. I have my notes here. I wanted to thank President Zabaldi and his wife, Virginia. We had an opportunity the last couple of days to talk and get a better understanding of what Adams State is like. You know, Thomas Wolfe said in his famous novel, "You can't go home again." Well, there are exceptions to every rule. You can, and I am home. It feels really good to be here. There were a lot of people who made this trip possible, and it was without the selection by the Alumni Board, this would not have happened. I'd like to give my thanks to you and the board for this selection. I really appreciate it. And Lori handled the communications, and we really do appreciate all that you did. Because I live in Philadelphia, so there was a lot of communication that had to take place. One of my major contacts here was Dr. Benita Brink, and she was very helpful, and we arranged to have a couple of opportunities yesterday to speak to the pre-med students, and then last night to the Board of Scholars. And it's just a remarkable group of students. I started to say kids, but they're not. These are adult students who are going on to their lives. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my family. Since I graduated in 1966, and I grew up here in Alamosa, my family's been connected to Adams State College and now University for many, many years, at least back into the 1940s and 1950s. Now, And I'm going to say a word about Billy Adams a bit later. We've heard of Billy Adams' award, but I'm going to say a word about Billy Adams, the founder of this remarkable institution. My parents were great. Mary Lou and Les Tooker were very good supporters of the college. They never graduated from college, but they found, as many people did, that this was the intellectual anchor of the San Luis Valley. And for those who were interested in expanding their intellectual horizons, it was just magical. Art, music, and science that was available to everybody here. And it seemed much more like a community resource than enrolling and going to a college. And it really was. And it was small because everybody got to know each other well. My brother Tom was a student here at Adams State College. And I'm very pleased tonight to have my two sisters, Debbie Brownell and Carrie, here with me and with their families now. And, they both live in the valley, and lives in Monty, and Debbie lives here now most on the farm in Hooper. So we go way back in terms of our relationship to the San Luis Valley of Alamos and of course to the college. But beyond that, we had an extended family, the Getz family, and a lot of you may have known Alice Getz now, and several of their children also went to school here. And we have the Florence Horton on the Horton side of the family, and Alice gets a memorial scholarship here at Adams State College. So it's an enduring legacy that we feel very strongly about. I'd like to say a word about Julian Maendel. He's a remarkable young man. I'm going to say this for two very important reasons. He has chosen one of the most difficult fields in American medicine, which is general surgery. And he's chosen to have his career be in a rural environment. And having spent a lot of my time in Maine developing rural practice sites, now arguably the most important position in a small community is general surgery. And it's tough, particularly if you don't have a lot of other general surgeons around you, and you have to make big decisions 24 hours a day. In your community, they has to depend on you a great deal. So in addition to the surgical skill, judgment is extremely important. I think it's remarkable that he has this wish to serve his community now, and he started before he went to the United States. Now, there are many distinguished alumni as you go through the summer A-Stater who preceded me, and I want to recognize all of them, but there are a few of them, some of whom are here tonight, that I particularly want to recognize. Among the ones I want to recognize, not here tonight, is Julian. And many of you know Coach Field. I knew him when he was my biology teacher at Alamos High School. Yeah. And I don't know, do any of you know that he was a biology teacher? Yeah. And his mother worked at Cavaliers here in Alamos. And he was arguably not the most interesting man, although he was very interesting, but I would say arguably the hardest working man I've ever seen. Man. It was, many of you remember the Oriental Refinery, gas station down on Main Street. Joe would pump gas, working in that gas station until it was time to come to school. And then he would come to school to teach biology, and then he would coach track and football after school. And that legacy of serving as a mentor, as an example of people that if you work hard and apply yourself and are disciplined, you can get where you want to go. I've never forgotten that with Joe. Yeah. Another one is my very good friend and roommate, Ira Zucker. And fortunately, Ira passed away, but he was an outstanding alumnus here in 1988, and Joe was well before that. Ira was one of these bigger than life kind of people. And Arbella Weldon is here, who's a great friend of Ira and Louise Zucker. But I'd be remiss in not just recognizing the faculty who were so instrumental in my career. But I learned a lot from my fellow students now. here we were living in a duplex owned by my grandfather, George Morton. And by the way, when we finished that place, it was condemned and bought by the federal government. It's now where the post office is. But here was a kid from Alamosa, and one roommate was from Massachusetts, Steve, a master's Ira, and I grew up here in the valley, and I didn't know much about ethnic diversity and religious diversity. The only Jewish people that I knew were Sam and Pearl Gardensworth, who owned gardens were sporting goods and drove a pink Cadillac, and that was my sense of Jewry in the valley. And here comes Ira from Pittsburgh as a very Jewish guy, and he taught me a ton about the world outside of Alamosa. And the point is that I tend to learn by looking at people's behaviors, and you take bits and pieces, you borrow bits and pieces from other people and say, that's a desirable trait, I would like to be like that. And I am a profound introvert, may not seem like I am. Ira was just totally the opposite. So I used to watch him perform for me. Another person I would really like to recognize here tonight, and I warned him in advance that I would embarrass him somewhat, and that was my major professor, as I was a chemistry major, Kay Watkins. And Kay was another person whose behavior I really tried to model. He was just exceptional, not only in imparting knowledge about science, but in the way that he taught and advised. And I've been very grateful to have a chance to say hi to Kay yesterday, and I'm very grateful for all that you do for me. Now, I want to turn a little bit to Billy Adams. There's a tradition in medicine that you need to recognize, acknowledge, and appreciate those who have gone before you and paved the way. And your ride has been made much easier by the sacrifices that other people made. And Billy Adams was one of those just remarkable people who came to the valley at the right time and did the right thing. And I apologize if I'm repeating a lot of what you already know. Billy Adams was only 17 years old when he entered the valley. And he began to work in ranching and farming here, and in a fairly short period of time, Billy Adams was able to acquire land and start a ranching here in the valley. And when I was in grade school, we lived for a few years south of town on what is now called the Hanson Ranch. It's between here and the south, also called the River Ranch. But to get there, as you go down the river road, you go by the old Adams Ranch. I didn't make that connection until much later in life. That was Billy Adams' ranch. And when he was in his early 20s, he was the mayor of Alamosa after coming here when he was only 17. He was also instrumental in starting irrigation here in the valley, the development which is called the San Luis Canal, which transformed the valley from being primarily a ranching valley to farming. After being the mayor, he was a county commissioner for Pinellas County and was elected to the state legislature. And I've had an interest in that since my grandfather was a state legislator as well. And after being a representative, he was elected to the Senate and was in the Colorado legislature for more than 40 years. He only sponsored one bill during his entire 40 years. And as you might expect, that bill was to establish a college here in Alamosa. Without him, it's hard to tell how long it would have taken to achieve that same goal. And that was initially the Alamosa State Normal School. And it was then changed in recognition of Dr. Adams, Billy Adams. He wasn't Dr. Adams, he only had a grade school education, to the Adams State Teachers College now, and as we know now, it's Adams State University. And as Dr. Savaldi said, Ira Richardson was the right person at the right time to be the president. He was for 25 years, from 1925 until 1950. down south of Alumnus, when we lived there, we went to a little 3-room schoolhouse. It was Excelsior School, which was a consolidated school district, new schoolhouse just north of Manassas. My teacher, there was one teacher for every 4 years of the 12 grades. And there were about 50 kids in the school. And some years we had graduation, some years we didn't. But my teacher was Amy Stewart. She's another one of these people that now, at my age, I remember her extremely well in the 3rd grade in this little school. I came in contact with her grandmother about 2 years ago. And Amy Stewart graduated with a teacher's certificate from where it was then Adams State Teachers College. So no matter where you turn in this valley, you're going to find people who were influenced by the Adams State College. The next person I want to recognize is Lit Bunch, and Lit was the name that we called him by, and I am so glad to have Glenn and Fred here this evening, because it really is coming home. And he was the kindest physician, the most complete physician, and the 2 great qualities, one of which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but those 2 qualities were technical competence. If you've read the book Cutting for Stone, he was competent. He knew how to cut for stone. And on the other hand, he was one of the most empathetic physicians I've ever met. He knew how to listen, read emotions, and find out what patients need. And I don't know how it is for every student, but I didn't know when I was a junior in college what I wanted to do. I really liked chemistry, but somehow I couldn't see myself being a chemist the rest of my life. And something was just bugging me. And so I talked to him and about the possibility of medicine. The other person that was instrumental was an English lit professor, Beryl McAdam, and a lot of you may remember her. And she introduced sort of the other side of medicine, and that the science was a big part of it, but the other side of it was as Julian was talking about, service. And this was an English lit class. She talked about how important it was if you had a liberal arts education, that it prepares you to live a noble life and to give back to your community. Particularly since in those days most people did not have an education. It was a particular obligation that you do that. And it sort of hit me that said, wow, chemistry, liberal arts, I think I want to be a doctor. And it was really one of those serendipitous moments where your life changes, and then Lit Bunch really reinforced that thing. The next person is Fred Clockton. And there were quite a few students then. We had about 2,000 students in 1965 now. And I got to know Dr. Clockton pretty well. I had the honor of being the ASNF president during my senior year. And Dr. Clockton was a remarkable guy, high energy. But he had a hand on Adams State College. And in my role as student body president, he wanted to know what ferment was going on within the student body, and he would call me into his office, and this is one of his lines. I was sitting not very far, he reached over and he slapped me on the knee, and he said, "John, you old rascal," like this. When he was concerned about dissent on the campus, he didn't want a lot of dissent among the students on the campus. So I was sort of an intermediary between Dr. Clockton and the student body. But he was such a strong supporter of students. And in those days, Adams State was primarily a teacher's college, and it was very difficult to go from Adams State into medical school. They only were taking students from CSU and from CU. And Dr. Clockton, on his own, went to Denver and met with the Dean of Admissions, Phil Lowry, at the University of Colorado. And he said, "You have got to give this a break." And I don't think she said yes right away. But you didn't say no to Dr. Clockton. He just kept pestering her, but finally I think he said yes. Another group of people that I want to recognize, Julian and I are spending a lot of time thanking the people who were so instrumental to us, were my coaches then. And I'm delighted to see Jack Cotton right there, right now. And among the coaches, one of the most instrumental to me was Dwayne Main. I was just in a PE class running a time trials, and he said, think about going after track. And then I went after track, and then the coach McKillop, Don McKillop was a football coach, and he said, you're pretty tall and run, you're big enough, you want to come out and football. And my life was transformed, because just like Julian was talking about, that when you're working several part-time jobs, tuition then at Adams State was $250 a quarter, which seemed like a lot of money when you were earning yourself. Now, but to go from that to a football scholarship was just magical. And I became a janitor at night in the art building, and it gave me time to focus on other things. So I do want to thank Coach Main, Coach McKillop, Joby Hill, and Jack. It's really good to see you. The next part I want to talk about, and I'm going to close with this now, is when you graduate from college and go to medical school, you understand right away what academic skills and knowledge you need. In those days, it was primarily science that you needed in order to be competitive. My roommates, when I was a freshman, after graduating from Adams State, one was from Yale and the other was from Princeton. And there was a little bit of a sense of where in the world is Adams State? Is that a real school? And so it took a little while for the psychological adjustment, but I soon learned that I had the same knowledge and academic skills from Adams State as they did now, and that I could compete on that stage now. What I didn't appreciate about Adams State, and what I'm going to close with, is the liberal arts side of Adams State that is so fundamental. Because to be a physician, you have to learn how to develop and foster empathy with your patients. It's not sympathy that you're feeling sorry for them. You need to understand their points of view, what their emotions are, what's bothering them, and what their needs are. So it's much more about personal relationships. And these things aren't acquired in class, they're acquired over months and years of interacting with people and modeling behavior. And Adams State is very helpful in that regard. And here's the quote I want to close with. One of my favorite authors, poetry and prose, is Maya Angelou. And she was 86 when she died this year, a ferocious civil rights activist now. She said, people will not remember as time goes by what you say or what you do. They will remember how you make them feel. Yeah. And that is the sort of notion of the empathy that you began to learn at Adams State College, and you then carry it with you and build on it over time. So, Dr. Savali, I think Adams State has been fulfilling its mission for a long time. And it's such a gem